Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're tackling a really crucial topic, one that's rapidly shaping our world: the intersection of artificial intelligence, ethics, and our shared future.
It's definitely a big one.
Yeah, and you shared an insightful piece from the Times of India, The Ethical Imperative, Balancing Innovation and Responsibility in Artificial Intelligence. It's by Balaji Krishnamoorthy, who's the EVP of Findability Sciences.
That's right.
So we're going to try and unpack the core ideas from his article and really get into why this conversation is just so important right now. And folks can check out findability.ai for more on their work.
Absolutely. It's a conversation we really need to be having proactively. You know, as these AI technologies get more and more embedded in our daily lives, understanding the principles guiding them, how they're developed and used, it isn't just some abstract idea. It has real, tangible effects on how society functions.
Exactly. And just to illustrate that point, before we dive deep into the article itself, let's think about something real world,
Mm.
like AI in medical diagnosis. We keep seeing reports, right? AI analyzing x-rays, MRIs, helping doctors maybe spot diseases earlier. There was talk about AI potentially identifying certain cancers, sometimes even sooner than a human might.
Right. The potential seems huge there.
Huge potential, exactly. But imagine a hospital system using an AI like that. Great for early detection, maybe better outcomes. But what if the data used to train it mostly came from one group of people?
Ah, I see where you're going. Bias in the data.
Could the AI then be less accurate for patients from other backgrounds? And this isn't just theoretical, is it? Researchers are actually looking into this, trying to ensure fairness across different patient groups.
Yeah, that's a critical piece, making sure it works for everyone.
So this kind of real-world scenario really highlights why the things Balaji Krishnamurthy talks about in his article are so vital. It's not just lab stuff anymore. Okay, so the article starts off talking about this profound duality of AI. What are some of the specific areas showing that incredible promise, according to him?
Well, the article mentions some really key sectors. Healthcare, obviously, not just diagnosis, but also maybe personalized medicine, tailoring treatments,
Okay.
transportation, focusing on, safer roads with autonomous driving, better logistics, and education too. The idea of personalized learning systems catering to individual students.
Right. So it's really about enhancing what humans can do.
Exactly. Augmenting capabilities across some pretty vital areas.
So with all this potential good, why does the article stress this duality, this
Yeah.
need to also really think about the potential downsides as AI keeps developing?
Because that very power, the thing that makes AI so potentially beneficial, it also carries inherent risks if we're not careful, if it's not managed thoughtfully.
Look at the medical diagnosis example again.
Precisely. The AI can be super accurate, but if the data is flawed or the system isn't designed with the right safeguards, well, you can get unintended negative consequences. Recognizing that duality right from the start, it kind of forces us to be more responsible with innovation. We can't just chase the tech. We have to think about the broader impact, making sure AI actually serves humanity well.
That makes complete sense. So Krishnamurthy then brings in this idea of human centricity, calls it a guiding principle for responsible AI. What does that actually mean in practice, based on the article?
As he lays it out, human centricity means that the core goal, really, behind all AI development and deployment should be enhancing human lives and capabilities.
Okay, so not just efficiency for its own sake.
Right. It's about making sure fundamental human values are respected all the way through. He specifically mentions things like privacy, personal autonomy, fairness in the outcomes, and transparency in how these systems actually work.
Transparency, that's a big one we'll come back to.
Definitely. The core idea is that AI should be a tool that empowers people, not something that diminishes their rights or their well-being.
So if we actually prioritize this human-centric approach when designing AI, how might that change how these things are built, compared to just focusing on, say, pure technological power?
Oh, it would shape priorities at every single stage. Like
Okay.
if you're building an AI chatbot for customer service, a human-centric view would mean prioritizing clear communication, letting users know it's a bot, making it easy to reach a human if needed.
Okay, yeah, managing expectations.
Exactly. Or for autonomous vehicles, safety becomes the absolute top priority, even if it means the car doesn't always take the absolute fastest route.
Right.
And going back to that hiring AI example we talked about, it means actively looking for and trying to eliminate potential biases in the algorithms, even if that takes more effort in getting the data right and testing.
So embedding values right into the design, not just as an afterthought.
That's the goal, yeah,
Right.
not just bolting them on later.
Okay. The article then really dives into this tricky issue of algorithmic bias. We sort of touched on it with the recruitment idea. Can you elaborate a bit more on how this bias typically gets into AI systems?
Well, the basic way AI learns, especially machine learning, is by analyzing patterns in huge amounts of data.
Right, training data.
Exactly. The algorithms find correlations, relationships in that data, and use that to make future predictions or decisions. The issue crops up when the historical data itself reflects existing societal biases or inequalities.
So the data is not neutral to begin with.
Often, no. If, say, historical loan approval data shows disparities based on demographics, maybe those past decisions weren't entirely fair and AI trained on that might just learn and, well, perpetuate those same bias patterns.
Even if it's unintentional.
Right. The AI isn't trying to be discriminatory. It's just mirroring the patterns it found in the information it was given.
And what are some of the real-world impacts Krishnamurthy points to when this happens in areas like hiring, lending, healthcare, even criminal justice?
The potential for unfair outcomes is pretty significant, unfortunately. In hiring, like we said, good candidates could get unfairly screened out. In lending, people from certain groups might get denied loans or get worse terms, which obviously hinders economic progress.
Yeah.
In healthcare, biased diagnostic tools could lead to worse diagnoses or unequal care for some patients. And in criminal justice, there's a real concern that biased predictive policing algorithms could unfairly target certain communities, basically reinforcing existing problems.
Wow. So these aren't just small glitches. They have serious consequences.
They really do. Real impacts on people's lives, potentially making existing inequalities even worse.
Okay, so it's a big problem. What solutions does Krishnamurthy suggest in the article for tackling this algorithmic bias?
He emphasizes it needs a few different approaches working together. One key thing is having diverse teams building these AI systems.
People with different perspectives.
Exactly. Different backgrounds, different lived experiences.
Yeah.
They're more likely to spot potential blind spots or biases in the data or the algorithms themselves.
Makes sense.
The article also really pushes for rigorous testing and evaluation, like specifically looking for bias across different demographic groups, using diverse test data, using metrics designed to detect unfair outcomes,
Okay.
and finally, continuous monitoring after the AI is deployed. That's crucial because biases can sometimes pop up later or change as the data the AI sees changes over time.
Right. It's not a one and done fix.
Definitely not.
Okay. Another key ethical point the article raises is transparency, bringing up the black box problem in AI.
The black box problem. It basically means that a lot of the really powerful advanced AI systems, especially complex machine learning models, work in ways that are just really hard for humans to understand.
Even for the people who built them.
Sometimes, yeah. You put data in, you get an answer out, but the incredibly complex calculations and steps the AI takes in the middle can be, well, opaque, hidden from view, like inside a black box.
And why is that lack of transparency an ethical issue, according to Krishnamurthy?
He argues it causes a few problems. First, it can really damage trust. If people don't understand how a decision affecting their life was made, they're unlikely to accept it or trust the system, right?
Sure. That seems natural.
Second, it makes accountability really difficult. If you can't figure out why an AI made a mistake or produced a harmful result, how do you fix it? How do you prevent it from happening again?
Good point.
And finally, the article suggests there's maybe even a fundamental right here making. People have to understand decisions that affect them, and that should apply to AI too.
The article also mentions explainable AI, or XAI. How does that fit in with this black box issue?
Explainable AI, yeah. It's basically a whole field trying to develop ways to make AI decision-making more transparent and understandable to us humans.
So opening up the black box.
Trying to, yes. The goal is to get insights into why an AI reached a certain conclusion, maybe by highlighting the key factors it used, or showing visualizations of its reasoning, or just providing explanations in plain language.
So making AI more accountable and trustworthy?
That's the aim. Easier to oversee, easier to trust.
Okay, sticking with accountability. The article raises that question directly. If an AI makes a mistake, maybe a harmful one, who is actually responsible?
That's a really tough one, and Krishnamurthy points out it could be several different players. It might be the developers who designed the AI and picked the training data.
Okay.
It could be the organizations that decided to deploy the AI and use it in their operations.
Right, the company using it.
Or, in some situations, maybe even the end users who relied too heavily on the AI's output without applying their own critical judgment. The lines can get pretty blurry.
Yeah, it sounds complex.
It is. It's a big area of ongoing legal and ethical discussion.
So why is it so important then to actually establish clear frameworks for accountability around AI?
Well, clear accountability is just essential for building trust and ensuring responsible innovation. If nobody knows who's responsible when things go wrong,
It's chaos.
yeah, pretty much. It's hard to learn from mistakes, hard to prevent future harm, and it undermines public confidence in the technology altogether.
Right.
Having those frameworks encourages everyone involved, developers, companies, users, to act more responsibly and really think about the potential consequences. Plus, it gives a basis for remedies when things do go wrong.
Okay. The article then shifts gears a bit to privacy, another huge area with AI. What's the basic connection between advanced AI and our personal data?
The connection is fundamental, really. Many of the big leaps in AI, especially machine learning, are fueled by analyzing just massive amounts of data.
And often that's personal data.
Very often, yes.
Right.
Things like our browsing history, what we buy, our social media posts, maybe even biometric data like fingerprints or facial scans. The more data the AI learns from, generally, the better it gets.
But that reliance on our personal data raises some big concerns, doesn't it? What does the article highlight?
Krishnamoorthy points to several key concerns. Consent is a big one. Are people really properly informed about how their data is being collected and used to train these AI systems?
Often feels like we just click agree.
Right. Then there's data security. How do we make sure all this sensitive personal info is actually protected from breaches or misuse?
Critical.
And then there are bigger questions around data ownership and control. Like, who actually gets to decide how our personal data is used for AI?
Yeah, fundamental questions. What solutions does the article suggest for handling these privacy issues in the age of AI?
It stresses the need for strong data governance frameworks. That means clear rules, regulations, guidelines about collecting, processing, storing personal data for AI.
So better oversight.
Better oversight, definitely. And it also highlights the importance of exploring and using privacy-preserving technologies.
What are those?
These are technical methods that try to let AI learn from data without needing access to the raw, identifiable personal information. Things like anonymization, where you strip out identifying details, or differential privacy, which adds statistical noise to protect individuals.
Interesting. So technical fixes alongside policy fixes.
Ideally, yes, a combination.
Yeah, the article also brings up the global nature of AI ethics. It notes that different cultures might have different priorities. How does that complicate things?
It adds another layer of complexity, for sure. What's seen as an acceptable use of AI in one place might be viewed very differently somewhere else.
Like facial recognition, maybe?
That's a classic example.
Yeah.
Cultural norms, values, legal systems, they vary hugely around the world. And these differences shape how societies view the ethics of certain technologies. So finding one single set of ethical rules for AI that works everywhere is, well, really challenging.
So how do we deal with that? How does the article suggest we navigate these global differences?
The suggestion is to really foster inclusive, cross-cultural dialogue, bringing together diverse voices from different regions, different backgrounds, to openly discuss the challenges and potential solutions.
So talking it through.
Yeah, building shared understanding. While acknowledging and respecting those cultural differences, Krishnamoorthy also stresses that we need to uphold fundamental human rights as a kind of common ground, a baseline that should guide AI development and use everywhere.
A universal baseline, even with cultural variations.
That seems to be the idea.
Krishnamurthy also really hammers home the need for collaboration, getting various stakeholders involved in shaping AI ethics. Which groups does he specifically call out?
He says it has to be a collective effort. He specifically mentions industry leaders. They need to build ethics into their business practices.
Right.
Policymakers, they need to create smart, adaptable regulations. Researchers, they need to keep digging into the ethical questions and finding solutions. Civil society organizations and the general public need to be actively involved, shaping how AI is governed and making sure their values are represented. It can't just be the tech companies and governments deciding everything.
And what about education? What role does that play in getting to a more ethical approach to AI?
Education is seen as foundational in the article. Krishnamoorthy argues it's crucial to embed ethical reasoning and critical thinking right into the training of future AI developers and engineers.
So from the very beginning of their careers.
Exactly. They need the tech skills, obviously, but they also need to understand the potential societal impacts of what they're building: fairness, privacy, accountability, all of it.
So they approach their work with an ethical compass already in place.
That's the hope, equipping the next generation to think critically.
The article wraps up by highlighting humility as being really important when dealing with AI ethics. Why is humility so key here?
Krishnamurthy suggests it's because AI is moving so fast, and the ethical implications are often really complex, not always obvious up front. So we need a dose of humility.
Acknowledging we don't have all the answers.
Precisely. Recognizing that our understanding is constantly evolving, that there aren't always easy solutions. This humility should push us towards continuous learning, keeping the dialogue open between everyone involved, and being willing to adapt our ethical thinking as the tech changes and we learn more.
Makes sense. You can't be dogmatic when things are changing so quickly.
Right. Need to be flexible.
Finally, the author frames this whole ethical imperative in AI as both a defining challenge but also a huge opportunity. What, in his view, will ultimately shape the future of AI.
He believes it won't just be the raw technological power that determines AI's future. It'll be the values that we, as a society, consciously choose to embed within these systems.
So our choices matter more than the tech itself, ultimately.
That's the argument. Our commitment to putting ethics alongside innovation, that's what will really define the kind of future AI helps create.
And what's the potential upside? If we manage to navigate this well, prioritize ethics alongside the tech advancements.
The potential payoff, as the article concludes, is immense. We could genuinely harness AI's incredible transformative power to benefit humanity in really profound ways.
How so?
By being proactive, by being thoughtful about the ethics, we can steer AI towards helping create a future that's more just, more equitable, more prosperous for everyone. It's about making sure our technological leaps are guided by wisdom and a real commitment to human values.
So as we've kind of explored through Balaji Krishnamoorthy's insights here from the Times of India, these rapid AI advancements bring both these amazing possibilities, but also some pretty significant responsibilities. And the key message seems to be that building a future where AI genuinely helps humanity takes this constant, conscious effort to keep ethical considerations front and center at every step.
Yeah, it's not an add-on. It has to be integrated.
Right. It's not just about what AI can do, but really focusing on what it should do, guided by our core human values. And again, people can learn more about the work in this area at findability.ai.
And this whole deep dive really shows, I think, that AI ethics is this incredibly complex, evolving field. There are no easy answers.
Definitely not.
It requires constant attention, open conversation, and just a willingness to adapt our thinking as the technology itself keeps moving forward. The questions we talked about today, bias, transparency, accountability, privacy, they're crucial for all of us, really, as we live in a world that's more and more shaped by AI.
True for individuals, true for society as a whole.
Exactly. So hopefully listeners will keep thinking about these points, maybe engage more in this ongoing, very necessary conversation.